This is the Norris Group's Real Estate Investor Radio Show, the award-winning show dedicated to thought leaders shaping the real estate industry and local experts revealing their insider tips to succeed in an ever-changing real estate market. Hosted by author, investor, and hard money lender, Bruce Norris.
Hi, thanks for joining us. My name is Bruce Norris. Our special guest today is Mike Cantu. Mike has worn a lot of hats: real estate investor, entrepreneur, property manager, sometime speaker, and full-time capitalist. Mike, welcome back to our show.
Glad to be here, Bruce.
Of those definitions, which one hits home the most?
At this point in life, Bruce, I would have to say property manager, staying on top of my rental portfolio. Every day, though, I wake up as an entrepreneur, first and foremost, capitalist entrepreneur, scan the horizon for opportunity. But first priority is keep the rentals going, solve any challenges, and change hats once that's taken care of.
You've never delegated that to a company. Why is that?
Mick Blackwell, he explained a long time ago that nobody will look after your stuff the way you do. Nobody cares about it as much. It's yours. It's your responsibility. And I've always gone to the Mick Blackwell School of Management. I've been influenced by others, but all of my big influences manage their own stuff or in-house management. And at this point, Bruce, Kim, my secretary of many, many years, she probably handles 75 to 80% of the challenges. It's usually a tradesperson call, and she knows who to call and resolves it and gives me an update. Occasionally, we have to have a discussion about it. Yesterday, I had a water heater go out again, another Home Depot one that didn't make it to the 2-year mark, and we had a brief discussion about that because the code had changed on the pressure relief valve, and we got it handled.
Okay. But you're right. Most of the people that have fairly large portfolios seem to manage them themselves, which I have never wanted to do, to be honest with you. So, especially since most of my stuff's in Florida, it would make it very difficult.
Well, I learned the hard way, Bruce, that it's all about the property and the location of the property, and that dictates the tenant draw, and which dictates the whole management experience. Good house in a good neighborhood with the right tenant in it, you have no idea that you're even in the real estate business. The wrong house, wrong neighborhood, wrong tenant, it's a 24/7 nightmare.
Well, let's talk about that because, you always had a grading system for properties, but you certainly had your share of C properties that you started with and ended up with A properties. But your journey, did you at times have C rental properties that were challenges? And then what was your goal? What was your end goal for that property?
Oh, I had lots of them, Bruce, over the years. Like I said, it was trial and error. And once I realized that this was not that. See, I've always had my parts and tools theory, and the parts are the good properties that make up your retirement, and the tools are all the other houses that you use to get there, whether it's a wholesale deal, a retail flip to generate a chunk of money, or something that you hang on to for a few years, grow it up in value, pay down the loan, and create some equity. But those are tools, and anything that was a C, C plus, B minus, I realize those are tools. This is a temporary ownership, and it's all part of the big picture to get the good stuff paid for retirement.
I think what we need is a Mike Cantu book of theorems or postulates, like we used to have in math. Under the B will be the burrito theory. That's funny. I'm just curious. You made a commitment and kept it for not smoking when we had the Millionaire Maker event. So I just wanted an update on that.
That was a challenge, Bruce. I think I called you up late that summer and said you really made a mess of my summer. I got through that. That was an interesting journey, one of the hardest things I've ever done, but no, it was mission accomplished.
I finally gave up Diet Coke, and I started to think what you had said. A lot of your day was wrapped around certain things, and I realized every time I got gas, I would go in and get a Diet Coke. So now I want gas, and I didn't have anywhere to go. and little things like that, you go, okay, wow, I'm really changing here.
I realized with smoking, Bruce, and most of it was triggers. Like when I used to get in my truck, I'd put the key in, I'd put the seatbelt on, I'd push the lighter in, and there was a whole routine there, and I just had to start eliminating. First acknowledge the triggers, and then start eliminating.
Okay. This being an entrepreneur, you're one of the few people who kind of did that at an early age. What were some of the things that you did when you were in school that sort of looked pretty entrepreneurial for your age group?
Well, Bruce, that started off in elementary school. I had a business. I think I started it in third grade, that I would take my lunch money and I would go to 7-Eleven in the morning and buy a pack of Starbursts. You got 11 pieces to a pack, and I would sell them at school for a nickel a piece. The whole pack costs $0.25, so I would usually eat one or two of them, but I'd end up doubling my money almost every day.
Where did you get that from?
Started. That was the first of many. I had an aluminum can business, so it was one thing after another. We did a bottle drive. It was for my benefit, but there was a large apartment complex down the street, and I used to work that regularly with a wagon and a spiel and knock on everybody's door and get a bunch of returnable bottles. So I was always out hustling. I had several friends that were well-to-do as a kid, and I realized their life was totally different than my life. And if I wanted a fraction of what they had, it was up to me. I'd ask my dad for that stuff, and he'd just break out in laughter.
So that, just by observation of wanting something different, that's where the gear kicked in. But, I mean, how many other third graders have you ever heard do that? I mean, that's ridiculously rare.
It is, Bruce. Yeah, I'm not sure what to say about that. I kind of did have a monopoly on the business in elementary school, and eventually that came to an end. I remember emptying my pockets out. I must have had 3 packs of unwrapped Starbursts in one pocket and another pocket full of nickels, and standing in the principal's office trying to explain how this was a great idea.
Okay. A lot of people attempt buying and selling properties, and not a big percentage of them make it. So what is your take? Are really good people in this business trained, or are they born with some gift that allows them to do it?
Bruce, I think it's a couple of different, you got to attack that one from a couple of different angles. First, there's got to be a real desire there, not just a wish, but a burning desire. And then second, I think the education is so important. I realized early on, if I'm going to be in the game, I'm going to be a student of the game, because every day I realized how much I didn't know. And as I progressed down the road of real estate, I realized that everything else in real estate is harder than a house. And so every time I would venture off into something else, I'd end up back at what I called the kindergarten of real estate, and that was entry-level housing and decent to good neighborhoods. And I thought that's what most of the people in America deal with, and that's where I need to focus my area of expertise. And then having role models, watching people. I mean, I was partners with Nick Blackwell for many years, and I would look at what he accomplished, and he used to go to breakfast with his friends on a regular basis, and I would tag along, and seeing what they accomplished, I would look at them, and I'd go home and look in the mirror, and I'd tell myself, if they pulled it off and I can't, I'm going to be really embarrassed.
Okay.
These were ordinary, hardworking people that from a big variety of backgrounds, and every one of them made it. So it was not a matter of, can I do this? It's, when will I get there?
How did you get started in real estate?
I watched a late-night infomercial, and I remember the guy was sitting on a surfboard, and I recognized the beach. It was Mission Beach in San Diego. They had the beach as the backdrop, and interviewing him while I was sitting on his board. And it was for a free thing the next night, and my roommate and I, Chuck, drove to Long Beach, and we listened to the pitch. It was a pitch for a 2-day weekend course, and I knew that this was the ticket that was going to get me there. So neither of us had any money. We stayed. We were the last ones there, and then we gave our pitch. We I remember I told him we needed a 2-for-1 discount, but we only needed one workbook, one chair. We would sit in the back row and take turns using the chair and the workbook. We would timeshare it. And I sold her on that. Then Chuck went in with a AAA discount. It was $500, and we got the AAA discount. Neither of us had a AAA card. I asked for a good student discount. We got another $50 knocked off. We were both.
You really qualified for that one, I'll bet.
We were going to community college, and I was barely pulling the C average, but we got a good student discount. And the final straw and last discount, Chuck had a Jimco card. And we asked for a Jimco discount, and the lady rolled her eyes and said, "That's it, $350, take it or leave it." We said, "We're in." And driving home, we now had a new goal, and that was to come up with $350 in the next 48 hours.
That's a great story. If you were on the other side of that, think about being on the other side of that, and these two guys are working so hard to get it. That would be impressive, honestly. The negotiating skills, just the attempt to get it for less. You'd have to think, okay.
That was non-negotiable, Bruce. I was showing up at that class one way or another. And if they absolutely banned me from it, I was probably going to try and listen in through the ventilation vents or something. But they had what I wanted. I just knew that was a key component in my future.
So you went to this the seminar, and they taught you some things. And I remember you telling me a story about looking for seed money, talking to your dad. Tell us that story.
Oh, I'll never forget that one, Bruce. He's only laughed at me 3 times. We share many laughs together, but it hurts when he's laughing at me. I remember after that class, I got all cleaned up, put on some good clothes, told my folks we needed to have dinner, and very important discussion. I contained myself through dinner. Then afterwards, my dad was sitting at the kitchen table, and I started to explain to him how they were going to take their free and clear house and mortgage it, pull out 80% of the money, and give it to me so that I could work my way down the road of real estate riches. And my dad, his eyes got big, his mouth opened up, and I have never heard him laugh like that to this day. He laughed so hard, he started holding his stomach, and then he, mocking me, rolled out of his chair onto the floor in the fetal position, still laughing hysterically. And I remember he finally composed himself. It seemed like eternity. Then we made eye contact, and that started round 2. And it was round 2 that really pissed me off. At that point, that night, my dad lit a fire inside of me that still burns to this day.
I have found the pissed off mode is a good place to be able to get, where you just have to show somebody they are incorrect about your future.
And I hate to say this, Bruce, but I want to say that there might have been equal parts of negative motivation. I would have to say anything where I'm on the pissed off side of things would be on the negative side, but equal part of negative emotion that has driven me along this road all these years.
Oh, I completely agree. I can remember very, very specific instances where somebody said something that was a broken Achilles tendon, came back on crutches. Guy that was probably the best player at the club looked at me and said, "What happened to you?" I said, "Broken Achilles." He said, "Oh, good, that's the end of you." He couldn't have done me a better favor.
Mm-hmm.
You just light a fire. And so somebody thinking that you can't do something sometimes is a really good starting point. So you have something to prove.
Oh, yes, I had something to prove to my dad, and then shortly thereafter being exposed to Mick Blackwell, and I just knew that Mick had stuff that could further my goals, and that worked out wonderful over the years.
What year was that when you met Mick?
1982.
Okay, so, interest rates were only about 18%, so it's a very similar starting point to my experience. What were you...
I remember the first loan I got in that time, Bruce. Mick set me up, and we had bought a property, and we were going to refinance and keep it as a rental property. Terrible house, terrible neighborhood. I remember it well. And when I explained the deal to my dad, He said, 17.5% interest and 8 points. Why did you do that? And I thought that was the dumbest question I had heard all day. And I said, because I couldn't get 17%.
That was the going rate, man. But 8 points. So was that a hard money loan? I hope.
Believe it or not, it was actually an FHA loan through a mortgage broker.
Wow. I didn't even think hard money was there at that time. So FHA at 8 points. Wow.
Yeah, I'm sure there was brokerage added on there, and who knows who else, how many people had their hand in that deal. It was my first loan, and I remember looking at the closing statement thinking, like 20% of the loan amount isn't here.
Yeah. Did you find the business easy or difficult when you got started?
To this day, Bruce, I don't ever want to say that it's been easy. I have, over the years, developed some systems that made things happen regularly, but no, from an easy standpoint, no. Simple, yes. I've always tried to have a simple plan. Just keep it very simple. Being able to explain it to a sixth grader was the goal. But easy, I'm going to say no. That's just a lot of hard work and persistence more than anything.
I thought of you, and I wrote it in the newsletter actually just recently. There's a movie, The Score, and the older experienced guy is getting ready to give some advice to the younger one. He said, write down everything you want for the next 25 or in your life, and then plan on spending the next 25 years getting it. So it doesn't usually happen quick. That's for sure.
Oh no, and Bruce, I've often said that I've got good news and bad news, and the good news is you can accomplish everything you need and more to set yourself up for the rest of your life, buying and selling and being a real estate entrepreneur in a 5-year period. That's the good news. The bad news is it most likely isn't going to be the first 5 years.
Yes.
And there's been several overlapping 5-year periods to where I said, if this is all I did in real estate, I would be home free.
Dealing with really big downturns. So let's talk about, you were involved from 82 to 89 with probably pretty good and continuing success. Would that be accurate?
That was still my learning curve, Bruce, and I made lots and lots of mistakes, but up until 89, yes, I was definitely ahead. I had several rental houses. I had made some decent money, but I stumbled several times along that road, and then 1990 hit.
And in 1990, what was the majority of the holdings that you had that became a problem?
Land that I was developing and had subdivided into vacant lots, and not quite finished condominiums in West Los Angeles.
Perfect.
Right. Everything that now I don't ever want to own, good, bad, or whatever the economy is doing.
Right. So most people if they get stuck with what you had, they don't survive. They come out the other end with that successfully. But you guys, you were involved with Mick on that project, on some of those projects?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I had a bunch of spec homes that were either almost done or done and couldn't be sold. I was splitting up 10-acre parcels into 2.5. I had a bunch of those. But I had 2 big condo projects and a major subdivision, and those were the boat anchors that were taking me down.
So I know you traded out a lot of this. So how did you learn about trading, and what made that successful?
Well, actually, I wrote down something completely wrong that I heard in a seminar. It was at a Pete Fortunato seminar, and what he actually said, I found out many, many years later. I thought I had written it down exactly as he said it, and then executed it just like I was supposed to. What he said was, use what you need, use what you want to get what you need to get what you want. And the example was a house. Use what you want, the house, to get what you need, the money to get what you want, the house.
Okay.
Well, somewhere along the line, I wasn't paying attention, and I wrote down, use what you have to get what you need to get what you want. And I thought I got a bunch of dirt. And I thought, okay, so I perpetually, for over a year, ran an ad in the LA Times, and it said, custom home lots, we'll trade for anything of value. And oh, did I end up with some interesting stuff out of that. But before I consummated any of these trades, I made sure that whatever I was trading for, I could liquidate the cash. That was the number one priority. Trade off for anything of value that can be liquidated for cash.
And how long did it take you to go through that inventory?
Over a year.
I mean, that's ridiculously fast. So I'm just curious. What was the rationale for somebody? I know you traded for a motorhome or
an airplane with a blown engine.
Okay, so the piece of dirt was just more attractive than whatever they had. Is that usually when trades work? Is both people really don't like what they've got?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. And I had a lot of trades to where I thought, am I really trading from this to this? Well, this is a bit more saleable, so I'll take this.
Okay. Well, yeah, I was in the same plan at that time, trading custom homes for 60-foot yachts and stuff like that. So.
Now, I didn't get any good. I don't think I got anything that was good looking out of this, Bruce. I remember I got an old truck, and every day I'd walk outside and look at this truck going, I got to get this thing out of here.
Well, I remember that part of the trade, one of the trades was a pile of fine art, and it was a pile of art anyway. I don't think the word art, I don't think the word fine could have been attached to it, but I was happy to get out from under $3,000 a month payments, so I was very interested in trading for stuff that I could liquidate. So I hadn't heard that sentence yet from Pete. By the way, I got to speak with him, not just speak with him, but I got to speak. We did a seminar together a few months ago in Florida. I had never even heard him speak before.
And now Pete has been a huge influence, one of the big influences in my life from the creativity standpoint, because he is so adamant about not using cash unless it's absolutely, absolutely necessary. The word, no, it sparked a big creative side of my real estate stuff. I can thank Pete for that. And I actually went to his class in February here in California, and once again, I ended up with pages and pages of notes, and I was just thrilled that he's still teaching, because what he has to say is just good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm going to Florida, I'm in his backyard, so he's obviously very well known and very highly thought of, and that was a pretty good experience. What would you say your three most influential trainers, who have they been?
Jack Miller, hands down, first and foremost. I think about him almost every day. I followed him around the country for well over 20 years. He would do a dozen seminars a year on totally different topics. Occasionally he would repeat them over the years, but I used to refer to it as my Jack fix. I need a Jack fix, and I would attend at least 4 seminars a year, sometimes as many as 8 or 9. Wherever he was, I would fly to him. That I ended up in some very strange places. I ended up in Minneapolis, Minnesota, to where I probably would never have ever gone there in my entire life had he not been speaking there.
Okay.
So Jack Miller, huge. Then John Schaub. John and Jack were good friends, but they are so different in their thinking, yet so alike. It was John that really shaped my rental portfolio. As far as I remember, one of the things he said was, every year, take your worst house out to pasture and shoot it, replace it with a better house, and eventually you will have no junk. And I remember at the top of the market in 2005, combing through the file cabinets, just looking for anything that I could sell, because prices were absolutely ridiculous. But there wasn't a thing in there that I was willing to get rid of, because it was all good stuff. And at that point, I remember thinking, wow, John was right. Eventually, we'll have no junk.
Mike, we got to take a break. Thanks for joining us for this segment, and we'll pick it up on our next segment.
For more information on hard money loans and upcoming events with the Norris Group, check out thenorrisgroup.com. For information on passive investing with trust deeds, visit tngtrustdeeds.com.